There's no doubt that GT3 has been one of the great success stories of international motorsport. Originally created in 2005 as a third-tier GT series to GT1 and GT2, Stephane Ratel's vision for the class has now grown to become the de facto lingua franca of global sports car racing. Ratel's SRO company runs many of the top championships around the globe, from the Intercontinental GT Challenge, of which the Bathurst 12 Hours is around, to a recent involvement in the series formerly known as the Australian GT Championship. Stephane was recently at Phillip Island for the opening round of the GT World Challenge Australia series, and I caught up with him for a quick chat. I started by asking him how and why he became involved in the running of the Australian series.
Because I've received a tender from Motorsport Australia asking us if we would be interested to become the promoter of what was at the time named Australian GT Championship. We replied with the concept of integrating it in our growing and globally growing Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS. And after the success we had first in Europe, then in Asia, then expanding to America and transforming the Pirelli World Challenge into this Fanatec GT World Challenge. The next step could have been Australia. So we made this proposition, which was positively received by Motorsport Australia, and who appointed us jointly with, of course, ARG as a local promoter to co-promote the championship. And that allowed us to extend Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS to 29 events around the world on 4 continents, covering many countries, and which will total, I think, this year about 120 different cars, all scoring points toward the customer racing department of the manufacturers. So you shouldn't see the challenge at the World Championship. It's more of a customer racing challenge. All these manufacturers have built customer racing departments. Their aim is to sell many cars around the world, to have them with good teams, eventually to reinforce with some factory drivers, and therefore you have this global competition of all these customer racing departments.
We've been talking for years here in Australia about the potential of the Australian GT Championship, and it's never actually hit the potential that a lot of us think it's deserved. I mean, how do you take it from where it is now to where you would like it to be?
I mean, first of all, we needed a good local partner, and I'm really confident with ARG we have this good local partner. I very much support and like the concept of what I see here, because you may remember, but almost now 20 years ago, my God, time flies. 20 years ago, we created in Europe what was named the Eurosport Super Racing Weekend, which was instantly a success, which was basically bringing together GT racing, touring car, and single-seaters, which at the time was Renault. And I believe, and it attracted immediately media attention, quite a lot of fans, and I believe what I see here is very similar to that concept that we had at the time. And the combination of GTs, of touring cars, of fast single-seaters should be attractive, and is certainly a good platform that we can grow. The question always remains: do we prefer for GT to be support race of a bigger competition that could be supercars? That we had the same question in America, where initially GT was supporting a lot of IndyCar events. We took the decision there and here to move a bit away and to have our own event where the drivers can be the center of attention, they have the center of the schedule, or the sponsors can have full visibility. And I think it's the right way to go. And I think we have now the foundation for growing success.
You mentioned the various GT World Challenge rounds around the world. GT World Challenge Asia is, of course, another part of the portfolio. You've also got an involvement now in the Asian Le Mans series. We've seen a round of the Asian Le Mans series here in Australia. Where do you see Australia fitting in with both of those series? Is there any place for local rounds or any sort of communication and crossover between the two?
I mean, really in Asia, we have to restart it entirely. We've been stopped for 2.5 years now. We're very pleased that Malaysia is reopening, and the first round should be taking place in Sepang. and we need Japan to reopen. So for this year, 2022, we need to restore the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, and we hope we will. The question remains on, and then we're very pleased with our partnership with the ACO in the promotion of the Asian Le Mans, which has been running in the Middle East for the last 2 years. When we will be able to restart is not entirely clear. A lot depends also of, beside the pandemic and the restriction, which are sometimes still linked to COVID, we have the cost of logistics, which has absolutely exploded and makes it extremely expensive for teams to send their cars by containers and even worse by air freight. So before coming back to Australia, we'll definitely need the cost of logistics to come back to normal. But I think it would be great to join the two series, both Asian and Australian, to have at least once a year a big event with all the cars together. That would look very, very good and would be good for the promotion of the category.
Of course, the big event that we have at the moment as part of your Intercontinental GT Challenge is the Bathurst 12-hour, and that's an event that really has grown and become very successful over the past few years. Where do you see that going? And we've obviously had the problems with COVID, and it's been badly affected, but as we return to some sense of normality, do you think that where does that race go? How big can that become?
But last year, unfortunately, it had to be cancelled. This year it had to be postponed, and it was rescheduled with what is the middle of the European season, and a clash with our Fanatec World Challenge event in Europe. So it made it very difficult. At some point we were wondering, can we keep it as part of the Intercontinental GT, when many manufacturers couldn't enter their pro cars because of the clash and others. So we took this halfway decision to say, okay, we leave it part of Intercontinental, but only with Pro-Am as the leading class. The idea now is to restore it already it's back to its normal date in 2023, and with probably restore it with a normal full pro category. And we hope that we will have more manufacturers joining. They were, in 2019 we had 9 manufacturers, which was an absolute record and made it a very high level competition. And I don't know if we'll return to 9, but I think we should have manufacturer support, and we want to restore the full calendar that we had of the 5 events on 5 continents.
We've seen you mentioned the ACO there before. The ACO and the FIA World Endurance Championship have now announced that the GT3 regulations will be the basis of their GT category going forward, and of course the IMSA North American Sportscar Championship also running GT3 regulations. What do you think that does to the concept, your original concept of GT3? Is this a good thing or a bad thing for the category overall?
The way the ACO has approached it is very positive, because the main decision was to have it as a Pro-Am category, both in WEC and at Le Mans. Which perfectly fit with the concept of customer racing. If you would have, GT3 has always been a balance between customer racing, sales for the manufacturers, and marketing returns. If you put Le Mans, bang, into the marketing return side, with the importance of Le Mans, you would have more, more incentive for the manufacturers to start spending a lot of money in the category, and that could have been dangerous. So I think to have it Pro-Am at Le Mans, preserve the customer racing characteristic of the category, and it's a very good approach. IMSA has a different way, such as DTM and such as others that want to make it a factory racing competition, which is very dangerous. And the biggest danger at the moment is also that we have new cars that are being announced that are very questionable if they are really GT cars, and there is a fine line between 2-door coupe and what we all know as sports car grand touring cars. Some of them, the value of them, the cost price of this road car being only 10% of the cost price of some others. and that could be a problem going, you know.
One of the things here in Australia which has surprised me over the recent years is GT4. I mean, GT4 seems to have been very successful, particularly in Europe. I mean, the fields are huge. Racing is great. America as well.
Very, very good. And we have like 15 licenses around the world, and many championships or classes in championship where GT4 is growing by the number, and we still welcome new manufacturers producing new cars. GT4 is a huge global success. It hasn't picked up in Australia. We will see. I mean, we have the very, very little nucleus of 3 cars here. Let's see if it can grow.
Does that surprise you? I mean, especially for something like Bathurst. I mean, you know, if you'd have entered a GT4 car at Bathurst in probably the last race, I mean, you were almost guaranteed a podium. And it just surprises me that for some reason people locally would prefer to buy an old GT3 car than for the same price or even less buy a brand new GT4 car.
Yeah, you know, I don't know, different market, different perspective, and I don't know why GT4 has not picked up here. You know, also in many places GT4 really picks up when it has its own series. It's difficult to emerge as a class, only in the UK, but UK sometimes, Britain is different in some ways. In Britain, GT4 grew as part of the British GT Championship mixed with GT4 3, and every time we wanted to say, okay, we do a separate series, all the GT4 guys were like, no, we want to stay with the big cars. But in most countries where GT4 emerged, like in many championships we have, European, French, German, and so on, the GT4 started to grow when it had its own grid. As part of the same event, but its own grid. So maybe it's the way it will go in Australia, I don't know. It's too early to say.
The last time we spoke was many, many years ago, I think around 2012 or something online, and you mentioned there at that point the enormous potential of GT3. Have you reached that potential yet?
I mean, it's difficult to go. I mean, when you see the number of, I mean, GT3's success is even, you know, now Le Mans, now even touring car championship like the DTM are taking GT3, which shows that, you know, GT3 is replacing GTE, is replacing TC1, is replacing everything. So, you know, it's difficult to say that we're not, now we're entering in the danger zone. It's why as SRO we work we're very concentrated on the next step, which for us is GT2, which we started in a rather modest way, but you will see a number of announcements, and it's a category which I believe returns to the initial fundamental of GT3, which are closer to the road car origin, with lower running costs, while being impressive and fast. So I think we could see also it's always good in our business to have an insurance policy, and our insurance policy is definitely GT2.
Well, it has been a spectacular success. I mean, not just at this level. I mean, a couple of weeks ago we went to the local state series, and the sports car category there at the local club level was full of basically older GT3 cars. So it's had a flow-on effect at every level of motorsport. I mean, as the sort of, you know, the architect of all this, when you see all this happening around the world, from Le Mans to DTM and even down to this level here, are you proud?
I'm so head down, working on it every day, all the time, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, and traveling around the planet non-stop. That I don't have the time to go around and say, am I proud or not? I'm just looking at the next steps, and at the next championship, at the next category, at the next car we're welcoming. And, you know, we also now have a serious look at electric racing, at hydrogen, and we presented our concept of GT Experimental, the idea being of having a world tour of this type of car, mixing road liaison and competition. So we were always working on the next project. We're also the promoter of the FIA Motorsport Games, bringing together 16, 17 different categories for a kind of Olympics of motorsport. So I'm so busy that I always look at the next step and the next project we're gonna build.